Hey, it's your boy, Sergeant Hooked Intentions. So today we are talking about Kamen Rider Revice, episode 40. Um, this was another pretty decent episode. There's some surprising things that I'm surprised at myself for being okay with or enjoying, I guess I could say. And some other things that are still kind of a tiny issue, but I think they're trying to work on somewhat moving forward. So going off last week, Daiji's still, being Daiji, and losing and crying and being a little bitch. Um, so he untransformed last week, and they knocked him out of transformation. Unhenshined him, dehenshined him. You always say the Power Rangers demorphed, so I guess you would say dehenshined. Anyway, um, and pulled a gun on his family, on his brother and sister, and was just like, blah, 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 stay back, you're wrong. And Sakura comes up and just fucking slaps the shit out of him, which I was kind of happy she did. Didn't change a goddamn thing, but I'm really happy she did. Because Sakura was the one that, wasn't totally sure that, Daiji was being serious about what he was doing. Like, Ikki thought it was possible, but Sakura was like, no, it's whatever, blah, 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 let's bring him back home. And wasn't really, fully committed to believing that he's that far gone. So she does, and they have a back and forth a little bit, and him screaming about, why are you guys, so stuck on being wrong, and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, we're not, you're being, absolutely ridiculous right now. And then Vale comes in, teleports away with him. He's like, let's go cool off, and they teleport away. And she's really distraught over this. They get back to the weekend base, and weekend dad guy, Tasuke, I guess. Shout out Zio Agato in your review, because I had no clue who this guy's name is. But Tasuke, or the leader of Weekend, says that now Daiji is public enemy number one for them. They have to take him out. And so everybody's kind of shocked by this. Even Hikaru, with, last week his fake mom died. And he felt something about it, but felt like Tasuke didn't care about it at all. And you could tell that Tasuke was affected, but he was trying to keep it in, and we'll get to that in a little bit here. But anyway, so he is pissed at his fake dad. As weekend dad, because of him just that quickly deciding that. And he even mentions to him, I'm going to make my own decisions on my own. He's like, look at it this way. When I became over demons at first, you weren't happy about it, but eventually you accepted me as over demons, and now you're okay and you support me. He's like, let me make my own decisions here and let us figure this things out. You can't decide that for the Igarashi family, that he just needs to be taken out. That's part of their family. And I think this is interesting for Hikaru, because as far as we know in the last few episodes, he doesn't have a family, I guess. There are some things that are interesting they're trying to do with Hikaru to fix him as a character, fix him or add into him as a character, that they could have done billions of episodes ago. They really could have. I wouldn't mind it. I wouldn't mind at all if a while ago, around the time they first introduced him, if they would have just went into more in depth about him, about how he feels about Sakura, about how he feels about being part of Weekend, have some character focus episodes where in the background you see him trying to help. Maybe a few times he jumps into one of the fights untransformed, clearly because I don't have his belt at that time, and gets his ass beat, but he's trying to help. Or maybe he does help in some way and saves somebody, and he's inspired by Ikki. Have a thing where he idolizes Ikki. That he sees how much Sakura loves him, and then he's impressed by him as well and idolizes him, and that's why he wants to be a rider. That would have been all right, but they waited way too long to give us anything about these Weekend people at all. The only one that's fine is Daddy Karazaki, only by association of George. So but what they're trying to do here is show that although they were a fake family, that they did have some kind of a bond. And so Weekend dad's blah, 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 and he's a dickhead and whatever. And so Sakura needs to leave. She walks out. She goes, I need to take some time, whatever. And she leaves, and Hana follows her. Ikki and Vice go back to the Happy Spa, and we see Genta and Yukimi having a fight. We'll get to that. And they're getting upset with each other, and he's not cleaning or something like that. And he's calling her crazy. And she's like, I'm not crazy, and whatever. And a little spat, and he's like, well, I've never seen you guys fight before. She goes, yeah, we do. Well, we usually get through it. He's like, yeah. She's like, what about, and she's like, oh, how'd everything go with Daiji? And she doesn't even know what happened. And so he kind of tries to tell her, and she goes, and he's like, well, how did we handle fights as kids? She's like, oh, well, I don't really know how you resolved them, but you always, at the end of it, were able to laugh about it and move on. And what we find out is that when they were kids, whenever they'd have an argument, they would really argue it out, or even actually fight each other. But at the end of it, they would understand who each other were, where they were at, what their beliefs were, and and were able to come back together as brothers and feel that same connection still. which is different from what we get right now. Daiji feels quite alone. He felt, I think what happened and what they're trying to push here is that when he initially saw how insanely powerful Gifu was, what he could do with stuff with a Kamen and everything, that broke him a little bit. And it's interesting because, for the most part, ever since he's become Kamen Rider Live, he's not had much to shake his resolve as a rider. Like, he had it a little bit before because he wanted to be Revice. He was supposed to be Revice. That didn't happen. And so he kind of had to be in his brother's shadow, and then he broke through that because it was Kagero making him feel that way, and whatever. But what they're doing here is kind of interesting for him because he, I think, was really shaken by what happened with Gifu. And at that time, he didn't think there was any kind of solution to it. He felt alone. He didn't know what to do. And by that point, he didn't want to die by making a mistake and slipping up that he was trying to infiltrate the ranks and figure out what was going on in Phoenix. And so he's been taken advantage of by Akashi, who we find out later has this talk about how he's been alone for so long. He thought he was, devoid of these emotions. He starts to feel for Daiji, and he starts to feel for him as a father figure, and that he wants to protect him in some way. And so it's kind of like this random found toxic family of him, Vale, and Daiji, all who have been kind of left behind by society and their family in their eyes, and have come together as these misfits who can support each other, which is an interesting, weird thing to go with, a dynamic, but it kind of works a little bit. Will say I want Daiji to have his snap out of it moment soon, but I do like this storyline of him fully committing to siding with the evil group, the villain group, because he thinks there's no other hope any other way. And I like his whole thing about wanting that he's okay with them being alive and happy, but maybe not having as much freedom as they could have. Whereas Ikki's on the other side, and we get to that in a little bit. But so he decides that he's going to contact, Ikki does, he's going to contact Daiji, and he's going to text him and tell him that he wants to meet up and wants to fight one-on-one. So he gets there, and he's there, and he comes with Vice, knowing full well that he'd probably bring Vale, and he does. So Vale fights Vice. They go into Giffard Rex form, of course, Ultimate Revice. And they fight. Him and Daiji fight. And he tries to tell him, hey, I don't want to do this, blah, 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 but I think this is the only way we can help each other understand where we're at and what we're doing. And he doesn't want to believe it, and he's still stuck in his ways. He actually, before the fight even starts, when he's with Akashi, says, oh, good, it would be a way to take out that target. He's starting to even see Ikki as not even his brother, as an obstacle to overcome, which is really scary. I don't think they're going to have Daiji kill his brother, but I do think it's possible something tragic might happen, where maybe something that Daiji does inadvertently hurts or even kills his mom or dad, or something gravely injures him, or something. I don't know for sure if he's going to die or that Ikki's going to die, but I feel like something's going to happen, and that's going to be the snap that needs to happen to bring him back out of where he's at. I do also hope for the comeback of Kagero anyway, but we also get a little scene of Sakura on her own, and Hana coming in to talk to her, and she's like, I just want to be alone. She goes, oh, okay, all right, and she just sits down and hugs her. She's like, no, what are you doing? Stop. She goes, I'm leaving you alone. I'm not saying anything. And it's really sweet because they have this subtle, not subtle relationship, between them. Are they together? Are they not? Type of thing. Clearly they're lesbians, but they're not going to get up clear on the show. It was kind of cool. Even Love Cop is there, and she says love, boo boo, go away, Sakura, or something like that. Wanting Sakura to be happy. It was kind of cute. So there's a nice little scene there on how Sakura is dealing with everything. But eventually we get Sakura, Hana, and Hikaru transforming, of course, respectively into Jean, Aguilera, and Overdemons, fighting a bunch of the Gifu soldiers, the Gifu Juniors, and Giftarians coming to attack the weekend base. And they're able to defeat most of them, and then in comes Akashi, and we get to see his transformed state. And he beats the shit out of them, completely annihilates the whole trio, and is about to kill Hikaru. And in comes Weekend Dad. And right at the last minute, when Hikaru's about to get basically stabbed through the chest, he gets in the way, pushes Hikaru out of the way, and he's the one that gets stabbed. We find out that Weekend Dad had a family, that his wife and his child were murdered by the Deadmans, and that ever since, what he's done is he's only ever focused on the future and left the past behind to try to secure a safe place for everybody else. And that's why it seemed as though he didn't really care about Hikaru, why he didn't really care about the one wife character, and didn't really care what happened to them. Let's move on with the mission, blah, blah, blah. But it did affect him. He just couldn't let it get in the way of the mission, which is interesting, again. But I think that there's pieces of this they could have seeded throughout. It's my same issue I had with 01. There are things there they could have seeded out earlier about Guy, about Thouser, you know, about him and some of the other characters, that once we got to those reveals later, it would have been felt more earned, in my opinion. It's kind of the issue with Revice right now, is that there's things that like they're kind of running into the problem of like they've written a decent reveal for things and like a decent end for certain conflicts and character arcs, but we've not had the actual arc there to care about it. You know, like my issue with the whole thing with Kagero, like they like basically forgot about Kagero until all of a sudden it's like, oh, we need to give a power up to Daiji. Now they have to fight each other to death and it's supposed to be sad when Kagero dies. No, and it's not. But anyway, so he dies and he drops his picture and you see it and he's all blah blah blah. My family gets a bunch of blood on Akashi's suit, and Akashi seems to actually kind of feel bad for it. Like he lays down, the guy lays down like dying, and he's like, I am, you know, sorry. He's actually apologizing for what he did or something like that, and that, you know, I'm sorry that happened to you with your family. And I think it starts to affect him, and now all of a sudden Akashi is real protective over Daiji, because we get back to the fight with him and Ikki, and Ikki does a final attack, you know, the Giffard final strike or final, you know, kick or rider kick, whatever. And he beats the shit out of his brother, and Daiji on the ground, you know, kind of crumpled heap. And Akashi comes in and saves him. He's like, don't you lay a finger on him. He's part of my family now. And he transports away with them. So kind of an interesting, you know, route here. Again, I think that if they would have like thought about this earlier, and that would have been more of like seeded out through to be the goal all the way through, it would have worked out better. It's the same thing like when you think about the sequel Star Wars movies. Each sequel Star Wars movie on its own, so much fun to watch, decently-ish. But when you think about too hard and too long on them being a trilogy, there is little to no connection between them. They're constantly retconning each other and it just falling apart. Same thing here, where these character arcs are getting these like ending moments, these big, huge, tragic moments, but we don't care about it enough because those characters that it's happening to aren't really doing enough in the show up to this point for us to know them or care about them that much. And it's kind of odd. But I'm still enjoying it. I think I still am really enjoying, like, storyline-wise what we're doing, character-wise what we're doing, suit-wise, all that. And it's still probably going to be, I don't know if it's going to stay in my top 5 right now. It's still in my top 5 because I really do like the show. But again, I think that's kind of what they're doing. They're really trying to hit on this whole aesthetic of family and who is your family. What does it mean to lose family, to gain family? You know, you lose, you know, your place in your family, but somebody else kind of takes you in. You know, all of these different kind of ways of looking at family in general and the family unit and what that means is an interesting part of Revice, but I think they kind of stumbled in the execution of that. Like I said, the ending ways they've done it would be super emotional if I knew or cared about any of the people that it's happening to. The weekend wife or weekend wife/mom, weekend dad, Tasuke, Hikaru, like any of the things that have been happening to them character-wise recently, I don't know why they're trying to make it so emotional for me to care about it when they've not done a lot with them leading up to that point. But still, even saying that, I still think it was a decently strong and even honestly emotional episode. The stuff from Daiji and Ikki is really good. Sakura being, you know, more on the side of like understanding, okay, yeah, I know he is pretty far gone. And all that is good. So overall, episode-wise, I think I would give this episode, or review-wise, anyway, score-wise, I would give this episode probably a 9 out of 10. I still really enjoyed it. I think there was a few things they could have done a little better and they could have done more with, but I do like where we're going here. I do think we're probably going to end up with Gif being destroyed at the end, or like combining with Akashi and making some new form, and then they'll just destroy that and get rid of Akashi and Gifu. I don't know. There's not a lot of time in like, what, 8-ish, 7-ish episodes to like really have Gif be anything. So I don't know for sure if we're going to get that. It was just going to be like a force of nature type Game Deus thing, you know? Next week's episode looks interesting, though. So we have the mass-produced writers, both demons and so 2 variant demons ones. Anyway, so yeah, mass-produced writers. So like, you know, like other seasons have had like the ride players and stuff like that in Xaid. We also see Genta saying that he wants to settle things with Vale and being given what looks like a demon's driver. So I wonder if he's going to use it to transform and fight, if he's going to be like a mass-produced rider, if he's one of the ones we saw in the preview, or if he's going to turn into demons, if he's going to take the Kuwagata one and become over demons, or what we're going to do. Maybe he'll even use the other one, the Kabuto one, and become Kamen Rider Vale again, even though he won't have the same power from the demon Vale. He'll still have like that power, I guess. I don't know, but it'd be interesting to see. If that's going to happen, then can we please just give something to Mama so they can all transform together as a family henshin style? But anyway, again, decent episode. I want to see where everything ends up at the end of this whole series. But let me know in the comments, what did you guys think of this week's episode of Revice? Love it, hate it, in the middle. Where are you thinking about what's going on with Daiji? Do you give a flying floop about Hikaru and the Weekend Crew? I'm really kind of happy the mom and dad guys are gone. Characters are gone, because now we can just have Hikaru be in there and maybe just sacrifice himself, and then he can give over demons over to Hiromi, and then it's fine. But let me know in the comments what you guys think overall. Coming up this week, I'm going to definitely review Down Brothers, and I'm trying to do some Toku Toy views hopefully this week or soon-ish if I don't. I know I keep promising. It's just been kind of busy lately, Father's Day weekend and stuff like that. So let me know, though, in the comments what you guys think of the episode, any other video ideas or content you'd like to see. I'm going to try and do something with Star Wars, maybe some stuff with Digimon. Haven't fully decided there yet. But as always, stay hooked on those henshins. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.